everyone. Hope you're doing well. Please excuse the Queen act. I'm not going to start singing Bohemian Rhapsody. It's just evenings are still a little bit gloomy for recording stuff, but I wanted to record the intro so that I could get this edited because, as you will no doubt know, our new game, Shivershield, is almost ready. It's almost there. I've been casting the figures for it. The books are arriving imminently, and then we're there. Pack everything, put everything together. Pre-orders are still open, so if you're interested in making sure that you grab a copy from the first print run, you can head to oakbound.co.uk. You'll find it under the Woods books and accessories part of the website until I reconfigure the website, which is coming, but I'll let you know on that one. So as part of the release of that, myself and Roderick, who has been writing the game with me, decided that we should get together and we should talk through the various factions in the game one at a time, give a little bit of background detail, talk a little bit about how they came about, how they're structured, some possible tactics for using them in the game, our experiences of playing with them, just to give you a bit of an overview. So that's what we're going to do this evening. So we have recorded this conversation. We did it on over the internet because we're many miles apart. Hopefully at some point we will get together in person and do it. This was a kind of a first test, so we can get lights and microphones out for next time. For now we were just sat on our laptops in under normal domestic lighting, so please excuse the lighting is not tip top. I will try and put some nice images and some screenshots from the book over the top so that you can see what we're talking about. Let's crack on. Today we're going to look at the Hearthfolk, the first of the warband types in the book. So I will hand over to myself and Roderick.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much.
A shame to be meeting with you at distance.
Yeah, but at least
to be a greater distance, but yeah, at least we're talking and we can see each other. So
absolutely getting a chat on.
Good.
And it's a bit different from the multiple times we got together and frantically wrote all weekend.
Yeah. Which was fun. I really enjoyed it, and let's not stop doing that because
no, absolutely,
we've got more to do.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, we've had a number of these chats not recorded where we've just thrown loads of stuff at each other, and so I guess I thought it would be nice to continue having these chats and maybe talk through some of the things that are now committed to the page or set in stone.
Yeah, good idea. And you said you wanted to look at it from the perspective of warbands first of all, as opposed to the rules in general. But obviously we'll probably end up talking about various aspects of the rules as we go.
Yeah, we're going to need to introduce certain things. But yeah, I thought for getting a flavour of the game, it's probably good to look at some of the bands in a bit more detail. And I figured maybe we could start at the beginning, at the order that they are in the book. So there was a kind of rationale to the order that they came out in the book, and the kind of rationale was, let's start with the people who are the settled inhabitants of the land.
And am I right in thinking they are literally the only people who weren't brought in by the Fae?
No, that's not strictly true. So the Tuatha were the people who were in the land anyway. And the Hearthfolk, which is the first sort of warband, we'll talk a little bit about the flavour of the Tuatha, but the Hearthfolk, who are like the core Tuatha faction, they have the Cludbur amongst their number as well, who are the kind of halfling folk, and they're also natural inhabitants of Talavlar, of the mortal world, but they've arrived on the shores of the land seeking a place to live after their own continent sunk beneath the waves. It did an Atlantis on them and left them adrift and marooned, and so that's why they've ended up in the land. So they weren't a Fae import; they were in the land anyway.
I'd still think of them as Talamar native, just like far away Talamar native.
Yeah, And then the Mieri weren't brought there by the Fae, they made their own way. The Booker weren't brought there by the Fae, they made their own way there. And some of the elemental forces were they were there anyway, in the sense that there were energies that were floating around, and the Tuatha kind of worshipped some of them, or at least paid homage to some of them, personified some of them. But the breaking open of the gates, the gates to the void, the gates between worlds, is what released the power that then enabled those elementals to take form. So the Fae didn't deliberately bring all of the creatures. Some of them made their way, but certainly a lot of them were deliberate imports on behalf.
But yeah, the Tuatha and the Cludber are the only ones that aren't from elsewhere, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. They're the people who are the native inhabitants of the land. Yeah.
Apologies for the background noise if anybody's picking that up. That is a cat being an arse.
Oh, that's nice. I'm not picking that up, so
Okay,
I'm
good.
sure people won't be. But it's always cute when they come and visit.
Yes, absolutely. Although not so much in this case. It's now very smelly. So yes, the Tuatha, and I mean, so in the previous edition, the Tuatha were an entity of themselves, and in this edition, they have been bonded together with the Cludber, and that rationale, we've basically looked at the fact that they are the civilizing force almost, as well as being, the initial natives. They're agriculturalists. They are all about gradual expansion and stability, and they are the ones who are, in some respects, kind of anti-magic, anti-the woods, even though they wouldn't see themselves that way.
Yeah. Well, they are the only warband that doesn't have a fate weaving capability. And the Cludber, in fact, are magically resistant, if you will. They're resistant to any fate weaving attempts on them automatically fails. So yeah, they are the almost the kind of out of touch human element, which I guess, I mean, kind of that's in the background of my thinking with them anyway. They've had this interaction with the Fae, which has kind of broken the link with the land in which they have that they are naturally from. So they've kind of almost forgotten where the spirits are and who to appease, and are living disjointed from that natural world. Whereas the wood folk, although the pixies are not native to the land, they get it and they understand what's there and they're trying to preserve it. Whereas the Tuatha have kind of forgotten and are building perhaps a bit
taken
close.
the forbidden fruit.
The
Fae. Yeah, but nice subtle theme there. But yeah, so in many respects as well, although there are plenty of other factions that have cool stuff, and in fact some of them have cooler stuff, I do kind of think of the Hearthfolk as sort of the biggest builders as well. They're coming, when you're using them on the tabletop, they've got long spears, they've got bows, they've got shields, and that isn't particularly high tech from our perspective, but actually having that on a broad scale everywhere, gradually moving out, is quite different from the sort of individual cool stuff that other factions might have here and there. Like, the gnomes have amazing stuff, but not everybody has it. A lot of them are just running around with a big stick, and then next to them there's a guy with a flamethrower. So the fact that you can just have across the board really resourceful, useful stuff, I think also kind of represents that sort of, like, it's nowhere near an industrial society, but you are able to claim the board and take up space, and we'll talk about that a bit more when we talk about my warband as well.
Yeah, and it's an organized society as well. Like the warband has a definite kind of fighting structure to it. It's not just a conglomeration of separate individuals who've banded together for a common cause. It's like a unit that's been put together deliberately and given roles, and everyone knows what they're up to. And I guess maybe the Huldra are a bit like that as well. But they come from that Tuatha stock. They were Tuatha at one point, so they have that kind of intrinsically within them, and it's their time outside of the mortal world has sort of twisted that and made it a bit weirder. But
yeah, I think I'd agree there, though, that definitely there are parallels. I mean, the Huldra are kind of the Ubermensch of the Tuatha, really, because they are all vastly improved from their time outside of Talamhar. But yeah, they are. I suppose they would be aspirational if it weren't for the normal Tuatha, and maybe are to quite a few of them. But then they're not settlers. They're herdspeople. They're nomadic, and in that respect, I suppose they kind of represent a bit of the not the noble savage, the kind of like the stereotype of the when they talk about hard men making soft times and making soft men, and then they're talking about like the Mongols sweeping in and so on, like, and them as herding people. They are individually stat-wise superior to a regular Tuatha, but they're never going to actually settle the land and work it. They're just going to migrate across it. They're not going to have the benefit of a nice warm hearth to come home to, or a crannog, actually.
Yes. I'm looking forward to the crannog.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody will get to see that. So yeah, well, I think flavor-wise, you mentioned before we started recording that people might just think of Tuatha as vanilla, or Hearthfolk as vanilla, which, it is one perspective to take on it, because they don't have magic and they don't have any insane special powers like some of the other factions. But from my perspective, you get to really kind of channel a lot of history with them, in terms of like, there's something really satisfying about having like warriors ranked up with shields, actually, defending each other, forming a shield wall against the weird shit that's out there. There are so many wonderful miniature makers who make good minis for it as well, in addition to your good self.
Well, that's the reason that for a long time we haven't made any Tuatha figures, was because there are so many out there, and there are some brilliant figures out there. I like the Keltos range. I think is wonderful. I'm so pleased that Brigade models still do that. North Star have some wonderful Celtic figures, and then if you're going more historical, Gripping Beast and the Perrys and Warlord, there's your sport for choice when it comes to Viking flavors or Celtic flavors or Saxon flavors or whatever flavors you want to throw together.
Gonna add Footsore to that, who have personally probably had at least 300 quid from me buying various bundles of beautiful minis that I can't necessarily use, but I just want to have. And they're a metal caster as well. Always good to respect that. I think you can make the flavor your own in that way, but also the core way they operate, it's not actually all that reactive, because I think so. Actually, before we start talking about tactics too much, maybe we want to talk about composition.
Sure.
So hopefully those of you who are watching this know by now that we've changed the warband formation system from the previous edition. Previously it was a points buy system, and now what we've done is we've set up the balance instead is in the choices that are available to you when building your warband. And each warband is built up of 4 hearths, as we call it, which, if you are playing Hearthfolk, might sound slightly confusing, but for every other warband, it's perfectly fine. And the 4 hearths have names which hopefully you have handy, Jeff.
The Curad, I don't know how to say this. Apologies to Gaelic speakers who know how you pronounce this. EACHRAIDH. I'm going to say Icrave, or
I think Icrave
maybe good, something like that. Yeah. And then Rink, but I think it probably is rank. I think is probably how you would say it. And Feared, like the body of your regular fighting men, your raised Feared. And we originally had Command, Elite, Rank and File, which makes perfect sense for a war game, but we wanted something with a little bit more flavor that you could still read it that way, so it's the same letters, and Rank and Feared sounds a bit like Rank and File, so we
absolutely
just kind of Celticizing it, Gaelicizing it, whatever, something like that.
Yeah, and a
Putting
little
a
bit
bit
of
more
Saxon
flavour
in
in
there
there.
as well.
Yeah. It's that weird mishmash. Everything in the woods is like an uncomfortable mix of Welsh, Scottish Gaelic, Irish, with little bits of Icelandic and Finnish and German and anything you like thrown together. And I quite like the flavour that results. It's got that proper sort of melting pot feel where everything's called something slightly different, and all these folk you can imagine speaking slightly different languages, using slightly different words, and then adopting each other's language and it becoming part of the common tongue. So,
and we've added modern Scots in through the Mindfolk this time as well.
yes, indeed we have. Yes.
Yeah, just because it wasn't
we'll get
complicated
to
enough.
that.
Yeah. So essentially, when you're creating your warband, those are your 4 hearths, and you pick one choice for each hearth, and you've got a few choices at each. I think you managed to make it 3 for each, didn't you?
It's 3 for each, yeah.
Yeah, and some of those overlap a little bit, but going through the choices overall in the Hearthfolk, as was mentioned earlier, there are both Cludbur and Tuatha choices, which in the common tongue you might call halfling and human. And yeah, should we actually talk about each individual one and what their role
Yeah,
is?
sure. So I guess it's worth saying that although when you look at the kind of recruitment chart for this, the club are all occupied the bottom row and they occupy their own page, and that's deliberate just to kind of keep everything that looks the same together so that it's not mixing them up. But there is nothing to stop you from taking a right mix of stuff. If it's in the recruitment chart, you can take it regardless of who you've got in most places. There are some cases where that isn't true, but in most cases, you've got free pick of anything from any of those columns. So
Yeah.
your regular human chieftain dude is your Tor Kalak. So they are they're just a slightly pumped regular fighting dude. Really, their stat line is not any different to the Fedrink, who are like the kind of regular warrior types, but they are more tooled up.
Yes, they have slightly better kit.
Yeah,
but only slightly.
absolutely.
Actually, it's not a huge
only slightly.
change.
No, it's not huge. No, but you've got your ring mail as your status symbol, and of course a sword, which is among the human populace anyway. Swords are still a symbol of power rather than being something that everyone's waving around.
Definitely.
So
yeah, Torkalik I find is I quite like. So I have, as I've mentioned earlier, I have a warband of all Tuatha Hearthfolk myself, and I find myself quite enjoying using him because he's separate, and actually the company's rule is used quite widely in the Tuatha. It's another aspect of the way they operate is actually they're quite organized. Their units are, good at supporting each other. And the Torkalach, I find, because he's a free agent, can be and also, he's got one of the better decisiveness, say, as you said, same as the Fedrink. He can just be damn handy to, essentially just give you a switch at just the right moment to move somebody in the decisiveness order, and hey presto, suddenly you're achieving something with a whole company that you might not have got to do otherwise, just at the time your opponent doesn't want you to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's we'll get onto companies a little bit later, but that goes back to what we were saying about them being a structured fighting force, that they do operate in groups together, which is something that they do more than anyone else. So your second, and I guess we'd call them a human choice, although they're not perhaps really that human, is your Norn. So taken obviously from sort of Scandinavian folklore. these kind of fury entities who appear in society and whip warriors into a frenzy to band together for a particular cause, and yes, kind of drive them into battle. And they're not particularly superhuman characters. They've got a bit of extra wisdom and definite extra courage, which is, I guess, you would expect for the kind of wild people who really don't care what anybody else thinks. But they have this ability to buoy other warriors on. So all friendly models nearby gain a point of extra courage to them. And they acquire this fury condition. So anytime they get damaged, they acquire fury conditions. They get more frenzied. So the more damage they take, the harder they become in a fight. So you almost kind of want to get them into a fight, get them to take a little bit of damage, and then they'll go absolutely mental and tear their way through the opponent.
Yeah, and the Norns are a new addition for this edition as well.
They are, yes.
And you talked about wanting this other element that sort of tied together the wild folk and the Hearthfolk a little bit, because otherwise there's no cross-cultural connection.
Yeah, that's true. We haven't really talked about the wild folk yet. They're the other kind of flavor of Tuatha, the more
survivalist.
Absolutely survivalist. Not interested in putting down roots and settling at all, gone completely the opposite way. But there is some crossover. So the Norns and the Kulins that we'll talk about a little bit later on, they are common to both of those warbands.
I still find myself joking quite a lot about the wild folk essentially being libertarians, because they are just fiercely individualist. Even if actually it turns out that's not how the world works, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I am the toughest, and I am all on my own. Yes. Anyway, enough of that. But they're definitely very different from the collectivist Hearthfolk Tuatha.
Yeah, very, very definitely so.
But they are actually, it's probably worth saying as well, they are just as disconnected from their previous life, from the interactions with the Fae, as the Hearthfolk are as well. Like the way they're going about things is still wrong. It's different from the other group, but it's just as wrong.
Yeah. They're all on wrong paths, misleading paths, and we can talk about paths a bit later on as well. But they are. Let's use the terminology differently, but they're heading in completely the wrong direction.
Yes.
Or have a completely wrong view of what the world around them actually is, let's say.
Yes. Yeah. They are deluded.
Yes.
So the sheriff.
So the sheriff is the first of the club, and I feel like actually maybe the club aren't that disconnected. But my kind of vision for them, they live this very pastoral existence, and they have bees, and they make mead, and they grow this herb called fuersanas that they smoke, and it's not really pipeweed. It's more like other types of weed that we might mention. So they're just gloriously blissed out most of the time. So their kind of disconnect comes from, I guess, that sort of not really letting anything worry them, just disconnecting from the world around them and enjoying themselves.
Yeah, I think that's quite a nice way to put it as well. It's almost like, not in a vicious way, but they are a little bit wrapped up in their own privilege.
Yeah. But I guess until they're on the battlefield, and then maybe things change slightly. The sense very much, it's less a warrior culture and more like a kind of policing culture as far as the club are concerned. So it's about preserving the kind of niceties of their existence. They have sheriffs who are the officers of the law, but they're trying to maintain the peace. They're trying to keep everything nice for everybody. rather than going out and conquering or going after personal glory. It's about kind of maintaining the status quo, keeping things nice for people.
Yeah, which definitely there are Tuatha Hearthfolk warbands that have gone off in that direction. They might have originally been set up with that intent of being about peacekeeping and protection, but then it becomes a cult of ego and worshipping their leader, and all of a sudden we're a band of heroes off to overthrow kingdoms, and that's a little bit less Cludburr style, I think.
It is, but you can see why they might go that way, especially as like the Cludburr as an entity to themselves. They kind of keep themselves to themselves most of the time in the Seven Valleys region, but the kind of Cludburr that might be hanging out in Tuatha bands are the people who are a little bit more adventurous. They're I guess you'd say they were your tooks. They're up for a bit more adventure, more tookish than Bagginsish certainly, and so they may be more drawn into that kind of going for glory side of things.
And I think it's also possibly just by the nature of the fact that there is expansion in the Hearthfolk, that with that comes intermixing. It's they're not able to stay completely isolated because the Tuatha are all around them and they're all doing the same thing, which is trying to, have a good harvest and get through every winter. So if your neighbors are in trouble, you go muck in.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So that's your command choice, your Karath choice.
Yes.
And then there's quite a lot of crossover for the Hearthfolk between the others. I mean, there are warriors that you only get in the Echoraid, however we're saying that, in the elite category, who are, again, a word that I'm probably pronouncing horribly wrong, the Kemper, the Kemper, don't know, something like that. If anyone speaks, I forget where that word is from. But anyway, I think it might be Irish. If anyone knows how to pronounce that, let us know. I could do with a pronunciation guide, which is terrible for the person who wrote it to not know how to say these words. But you know how it is when you can say it in your head and you can write it down and you think, oh, that looks good and that sounds good. But when it comes to actually speak it, you go, I actually don't know how I'm saying this word. Anyway, they are the kind of heavies, if you like. So they're the guys they've also got ring mail and leatherjack, so they've got this absorb capability and an abrade capability. So hurting them is pretty hard. They've got long spears, so they're keeping everyone at a distance. So you've got to win a fight fairly successfully to even get near them to hurt them. And they're that point of strength above all of the other Tuatha. So they are your kind of half guard, your people who are going to sit there and not move at all.
And I find them absolutely vital. I think, if I can briefly talk about the tactical use of them.
Do.
Because they have long spears, the best thing they can do is stop people charging past them. Because if anybody tries to initiate a combat or even just move within 2 inches of them and they're aware of them when they start the move, they can just go, nope, my spear's in the way, you can't do that. And the person I play against most uses Fae, and they are teleporting, body switching, evil sods, and they come at you from all sides. So the ability to have your Kemper there with their 2-inch spears just to say, no, you're not doing that, is incredibly useful, and you can use that to keep your bowman alive, who we'll come to in a moment. So I think people might initially go, oh, he's just got a spear, it doesn't really do anything special, it's just got reach. But actually that reach 2, that's -2 attacks for your opponent, and then you've got the armor as well.
Well, and also we should maybe say a bit about companies at this point, but when you're in a company, you can be within courage range of other members of the company, which is 3 inches for the Kemper. So you've got a 9-inch spread of Kemper, who've then also got an extra 4 inches of reach on that.
Yeah.
So you're controlling over a foot of tabletop with a wall of 3 spread warriors.
Yeah. And that is why for my first path reward, I have taken 3 more.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Alex is not going to be happy about that. But yeah, the Kemper are, absolute backbone, I think. And the Fedrink as well, we sort of skimmed over them earlier. But they are more champions, a little bit more independent fighters. They still come in a company, but they are definitely more about getting stuck in. They don't have the ring mail. They've still got leatherjack. They've got an axe and a great shield, and their stats are less tough and brutal, a bit more cunning about it. So what would you say is the kind of social background of them?
So the Fedrink are champions in the wording. So the
so it's almost more like young nobles kind of thing, as opposed to the Kemper are military veterans. They've been through.
Yeah. So Deepwood Shadows, the roleplay game goes a bit into the military makeup of the kind of Hearthfolk style to Arthur, and the Fenid are the main warriors, and the Kemper are like the kind of the elite Hearthguard, the nobles' bodyguards, whereas the Fedrink are a bit more like the guys who are sent out to go and do stuff. So
that makes sense. Yeah, more the foot soldiers.
Yeah, I mean the Fedrink that I've only sculpted one so far for any of these figures because I needed something for the book. But the one that I've sculpted is very much a Slonya kind of influence.
I figure
it's that kind of warped warrior out for their own glory in front of the battle lines.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when I was first building my warband, I was a bit like, oh, they've only got finesse 4. Like, that's not going to be all that useful. But then they're running around with a large shield and an axe, and both of those give bonus tokens. So if they had no war gear, they would be equivalent of, putting them against somebody else with no war gear. That person would have to be finesse 6 to equal them in that sense. Plus, the large shield also gives you overlapping cover as well. So if you've got an ally near you who's got a large shield, you get a bonus token. And that's also a defend token as well. So suddenly, although initially it feels like they are a little bit weaker compared to the Kemper, actually they really can do the work. And funnily enough, I have used them exactly the way you talked about, in that my Kemper are defensive and they're trying to block avenues of outflanking. And then I am getting offensive with the Fedrink and just trying to get up in someone's face and take them out and wear them down. And if I'm going to suicide charge with anyone, it's going to be a Fedrink.
Yeah.
So smashing onward and upward.
Yeah. So those 2 are your human elite choices. But the Fedrink are also in the rank section as well. So you could take 6 of those in a warband and either field them as a company of 6, which feels pretty intimidating, but also gives you quite limited ability to use them on the tabletop, or you field them as two separate companies of 3 apiece. Your club elite choice is a Stanhussar, and these are the goat riding lancers, because halflings on goats is just such a brilliant trope that there was absolutely no way that was not getting featured somehow.
100%.
And they're named after the town in which I live. So Stanhus is the kind of Anglo-Saxonization of Stonehouse, which is where I live. So Stanclud is the club capital, and their kind of elite noble knights are the Stan Hussars.
I never realised. That works out really well.
Which is why they've got a red rose badge on their helmets and their armor, which comes from the coat of arms of the town in which I live.
I never knew. Lovely.
There you go. You learnt something today.
Yeah. So the goat makes them a potent force, and you can get a couple of them in that slot. Plus, they've got the long spear as well.
Yeah.
They can do some serious damage, and they are mobile as well. They have agility 4.
Yeah.
No, sorry, 3. Agility 3, but still,
Yeah.
that's better than anyone else in the warband. And that means you can go a max of 12 per activation, which is some serious movement. So yeah, I mean, I see that together with the long spear. They've got good stamina, and and they've got more endurance as well. I think that's definitely a force to be reckoned with, if they can position themselves appropriately to deliver a nasty hit if they're able to get the first strike, so to speak.
Yeah, if they can get a charge in, because
Mm.
they get the free press runes on the charge as well from the goats kind of butting their way through. So
Yes,
yes, they're definitely a unit you want to be charging with. Tally ho!
100%.
So then the rank and file for a Tuatha human. We've talked about the Fidrink already, but the Scout are where I think the Tuatha have something that's really quite unique to the Hearthfolk. There are other troops that have some missile capability, but not in the quantities that you can get in a Hearthfolk. You can take 8 archers if you want to, which has a significant impact on the battlefield. You want to talk? I know you like using your ranged attacks, so maybe you want to talk about how effective ranged weapons are in this setting.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, really. They come in a company. You've got 4 of them. Yes, they're only short bows, so you think, oh, that's not going to hurt them very much. But actually, hitting somebody with 2 impact 4 times, that takes out almost anyone in a single turn. And you can have 2 loads of them in a starting warband. And unlike previous editions, there's no maximum range as well. So you also just get some great board control by just setting them up and getting them in a nice location and starting to put aim actions, targeted conditions on a foe, because suddenly they've got to get the hell out of the way. And also because they're a company as well, it's another nice little tactical wrinkle. You can share targeted tokens within the company. So if they move out of line of sight of one member of the company, they're still targeted as long as at least one of the company can see them. And so that means that, you can have suddenly a lot of range coming at somebody quite rapidly. To be honest, the way I mostly tend to use them is desperate, like point blank firing at a bloody Fey Queen on a palanquin, because she just keeps teleporting in amongst everybody and trying to kill everything and doing quite well at that. And so I just panic and just fire everything straight at her. But yes, they are wonderfully cheap, and because you get so many of them as well, like, each shot can be nice, but it's kind of fine to, just get a few shots, and you're not going to be shooting at very long range. You're not going to be doing a huge amount of damage, but you've just got so many of them.
Yeah.
And that is a force unto itself. Plus, when you get on into your advancement, if you're able to get, say, 4 equipment points, 4 equipment points, you can then go to longbows, which gives you, or full bows rather, instead of short bows, which then gives you another point of impact on each of them, and they're all piercing as well. So it's a very effective weapon all of a sudden, that you're cutting through armor, doing 3 impact with each other. That's 12. That is going to ruin anyone's day.
Yeah. And even if you're not they haven't got anything other than their bows weapon wise, but there's still 4 of them. And so
they're finesse 4 each.
Yeah.
And if you can just hurl them in there, they're getting 10 tokens if they're full on stamina.
Absolutely. And you've got to deal with 4 of them. So it's not like you can quickly and easily remove them. You've got to get up to them without being shot to pieces, and then deal with them piling in on you. So they're still not an easy thing to take out, even though they're
and the other thing I really want to do is get improve their perception, because if I can boost their base range at all, they're going to really, really start to take off. You know, the fact that you're not waiting until point blank range, you can actually start taking some shots a bit further away if it doesn't take you so long to reach that range. So yeah, lots of plans for those guys.
Nice. So the warders are the club rank. They're like the kind of deputies, and they're fairly standard, aren't they? The Tuatha across the board are they're bold, they're courageous, they're quite weak, sort of strength wise, but then they've got this extra point of endurance for their resilience and
the club bird, you mean? Yeah.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yes. So there's not a lot of difference stat wise between the sheriff and the warder and the militia, who are the file troops. It's more down to their equipment, and they've all got slings, so they've all got a ranged capability. And
and it is quite a different flavor. You've got a sling on the warder, and you've got a long spear, and they're also not in a company. Yeah. So tactically, it's a very different vibe. You're not going to be worrying about maintaining distance from each other. You can still clump together if you want, but if you need to go running around for objectives, it's a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah.
But that extra endurance.
That their extra point of courage means you are getting that little bit further movement wise in a single activation.
Yeah, absolutely. So then there's should we do militia and then the Kulin?
Yeah, so we kind of talked a little bit about the militia. I mean, they're your standard clubber with slings. You get 4 of them, and they are in a company, so you are a little bit more limited with those guys. But the Kulin, who's a kind of pack master, has dogs, and when you recruit extra troops in, you can either choose to add an extra Kulin and a couple of other deerhounds, or you can just add more dogs to their own company. So they build up this kind of pack around them. They're not quite as terrifying as the Whist Hounds.
But they're still pretty good.
They're long ranged fighty. So
yeah,
I mean, definitely got agilities of 4, so they're moving potentially 16 inches.
Yeah.
In a turn,
and that's massive. More than scary enough, to be honest.
Yeah.
Again, I play the Fae a lot. Whist Hounds are horrifying.
Yeah.
They come hurtling at high speed, and I'll stop whinging. But the Kulin, as you mentioned as well, is available to both this faction and the wild folk as well. And stat wise, they actually are not. I mean, they're not necessarily great fighters, but they've got higher wisdom and perception as well. And then they've got the long spear and the leatherjack as well. And I've not got one yet, but I can actually see them coming in really handy just for their flexibility, if nothing else, because having a second individual model alongside your leader suddenly gives you way more options, and they're going to have quite a high decisiveness as well, decisiveness 8. So
and that means... a long influence value. So their influence is actually an inch further than the leaders. So if you want a second model to be bossing people around, that's a good choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So you basically got you say a lieutenant, but actually with slightly better stats than the leader. Yeah. Well, isn't that often the case? You might say they're the professional, while the Tortalloch is the noble sinecure. Yeah. But that's a really nice wrinkle. And then those deerhounds again, very nice to throw around the board. And it's not a particularly slow warband, but it's definitely not a particularly fast one. Certainly compared with some of the foes I've been dealing with, I think you definitely find that you're solid and you want to keep your warband together. So should we talk a bit more about my warband?
Do
you want to talk about? Should we talk about?
I just wanted to say before we move on from the dogs, I just wanted to say we made a call at some point, and I can't remember when, to say that that animals were okay to hold objectives, because I think in the previous edition you said that you couldn't take objectives, you couldn't hold items or pick up items or things with animals. But I really liked the idea of sending dogs to like pick up things and retrieve them. I liked the idea of like launching your owls at a particular location and then just sort of flapping to keep people away from that. I really liked the idea of animals being an intrinsic part of your warband and holding things and fetching things and carrying things. So we have overruled that for this version. You can hold and take objectives with your animals.
Yeah, they're just part of the warband, really.
Yeah.
And I suppose the difference is before the animals were more ambient, kind of environmental. They weren't as tied to warbands, whereas now they're quite intrinsic. So yeah, I think that's a nice upgrade for them. It's appropriate given how important they are to it. But yeah, let's talk about paths first, actually, and warband progression, I suppose.
Sure.
So that is something that we talked quite a lot about, because I think in the previous edition, I immediately found a really great way to min-max that everybody started doing as well. Just because of the way the maths worked out, it was like, why would you ever buy a skill? Just always buy stats. Stats are cheap. Buy stats. And actually, I'm really quite happy with the way it's worked out, because it's sort of inspired by a little bit by kind of like Mordheim exploration tables and the kind of Necromunda progression as well. But to really streamline it, it's done by warband, not by individual model. So you have a core philosophy that your warband is trying to follow, and with that comes various rewards, and that's what the path system is. So each type of warband has access to 6. They have their own unique one that no other warband can have, and then there is 5 generic ones which they can pick from as well, which other warbands might have access to. And the path system is essentially, it's a linear path. If you achieve the secondary objective that comes with it, which is where the sort of philosophy comes in, if you live in the way the path wants you to, you progress faster along that path, as well as achieving your own core objective, which could be either a warband specific or one of the generic ones from the warband. And yeah, you progress through that, you achieve various forms of reward depending on what kind of path you're trying to follow. And crucially, one of the things we talked about was there is no end. It's not a case of you reach 400 XP and then you retire the character because there's nothing else you can do with it. Instead, when you reach the end of a path, you just pick another path or start the same one again, because of that sort of sense of continuity. And they're all designed as spirals as well, in order to sort of get that essence of fate and of circular time and the turning of the seasons. And I'll hand back over to you now, Jeff, because
I was gonna say I really wanted to steal the time spiral imagery from Dark Crystal, which I just love that idea of things spiraling past, and then you're passing the same points at different times, and you can either carry on where you're going, or that's a juncture where you go off to something else and you start spiraling on somewhere else, but then you might come back on yourself. And so yeah, it was just a way of playing with that imagery, as well as very much giving a focus for the way that the band would play. There are kind of different flavors, like the warband specific path for the Hearthfolk is the way of the settler. So it is that idea that you're trying to establish yourself, you're trying to set up a base, and then you're trying to attract some more people to join you, and you're trying to build your equipment store, and you're trying to very much put yourself in place and get yourself settled.
I think it's also like you're fixed. It's like when people talk about like mapping things as destroying the mystery, and how people feel like science destroys mystery as well. Like you are knowing things by surveying them.
Yes, I was going to say this is why the secondary objective is to survey. So your secondary objective for each path is a way of getting extra steps along the path. It's an extra little thing that you do in addition to achieving your main objective for the game. And the secondary path for the way of the settler is to survey. So it's to look at every piece of scenery on the board from at least 2 different angles. to get a good sense of what's out there, so that you can map where you want to expand into, how you want to analyze things, finding your way around.
Mm. And it's pinning things down. It's making the landscape known and no longer mysterious, and making the woods less mysterious as well. And I think that's one of the subconscious elements of it that's quite nice to, or subconscious isn't the right word, undercurrents, subtexts. There we go.
Subtext maybe. Yeah. Which is
subtext.
the special rewards that you get along the path. So the things that you get on paths typically are extra reinforcements from your own warband, or sometimes you can get allies from an allied warband. You can pick up stat points, you can pick up skills, you can pick up points to buy or upgrade your equipment, but you can also get these special rewards along certain paths, and the ones for the Way of the Settler are, first off, watchtowers. So the first thing you're doing is building surveillance posts so that you've got a better sense of the lay of the land. Your second one is beasts of burden, so you're setting up supply chains so that you can get things where they need to quickly. And then the third one is strategy, so having an overall sense of the layout of things lets you better plan how you're going to respond to anything that goes on. So they're all very rooted within the flavor of the path that you're following.
Yeah, I mean, the strategy is also, it's like you have an internal structure. It's not that you have actually thought about it and planned ahead how things are going to go, as opposed to being reactive. Yeah, you're trying to contain and control the future with your strategy as well. So yeah, I think all of that really ties strongly into the themes, and goes really well. So I completely threw that out the window. I've gone for the path of pleasure with my warband, which has been hilarious, because you have to not have the secondary objective for that is basically you just can't be arsed with things that are boring. So you don't want any fight to last 2 rounds. You only ever want to be in a fight for 1 round, a grapple that is. And it has led to me being in fantastic dominant positions and having to run away in order to still achieve my objective. So not being able to follow through has made it extra tricksy for me, and I really quite like that. And so myself and the person I'm playing this campaign with, Alex, have both now achieved our first reward, which in my case is reinforcement. I can't actually remember what he got. It might have been concoction or something like that. It's one of the Fey ones. I think it's Beast of Burden, actually. He starts with Beast of Burden. And I've immediately gone, I need reinforcements. I'm getting more troops. Now, I was thinking I would be having Kemper, but I just looked at the list again and realized I can't have Kemper because it's rank and file. Yeah. Or Rink and Third. So it's going to have to be Fedrink or Skielk or Warders or Kulin or Militia. And I feel like he might have a hemorrhage if I bring in Skielk and go up to 8 bows. So I might do that. I'll think on it. But yeah, the path's really nice because it means that you could have 2 people with literally identical warband composition, but they're playing a very different game because they've chosen a different path. And also, if you're wanting to kind of develop your warband in a certain way, you actually need to hit multiple paths over time. So your story has to change as well. Like, I'm starting off on the path of pleasure and I'm already thinking ahead to how can I get some stat increases, because there's no stat increases in the path of pleasure. Instead, there are skills.
At anything.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's trying to improve themselves. They're already great because they're having a great time. And I just kind of leapt it because I thought it was fun, And I'm immediately thinking, okay, well, if I want to develop my warband in a certain way, I'll have to go in this route instead. So there'll have to be a shift in the mindset of the warband at some point. The Turkalic is going to have to go, you know what? That's enough mead for today. We're going to have to we need to go out there and make ourselves into heroes. I mean, maybe they'll stay drunk while they do it, but possibly I'm going to go down the route of trying to make everybody a bit more elite. And then that way I get my bowman a bit more range. So yeah, definitely feeling like I like the fact that each one is self-contained. And also, we are nice people, right? There's no way to not get an advance on the path. You always get one, even if you fail at both your objectives. So you always get a step. It just means it's going to take you longer to get to your rewards. That's all.
Yeah, and if you are trashed by somebody who's also way better than you, you get an extra advance.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
kind of underdog bonus because you learnt something by being trashed by a much better warband.
Yeah, in fact, you can get 2 if they really are much
They're
better than you
really
and kick
good.
your butts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, it's not.
what did you take in your original warband then? You've got Scalk and you've got Kemper.
Yeah, I've literally got one of each type of unit
Okay.
now, really. So we've got
Yeah.
Terkalach, we've got Fedrink, we've got Kemper, and we've got Skalk.
Yeah.
So I've got my 4 bowmen, I've got my 3 spearmen, I've got my 3 sword and axe men, no, so shield and axe men, and we've got my leader. And overall, I'm usually spending all my time obsessing over how to not be outflanked by teleporting Fae, because that's who I mainly play against. But I feel like I'm looking forward to getting a chance to play against someone else. I think I might be either playing another human faction or possibly goblins next week. So yeah, I mean, goblins, love story of my life, obviously, is
So
the
you've
mind
got
folk.
a bit of experience playing goblins as well, so you kind
Yeah.
of know how they work.
Yes, yes, and I think also I think that's still to be explored because yeah, well, I feel like I'm really looking forward to seeing that young lad. Was it Charlie?
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to see what he does with goblins this summer because now he's got access to all of the new stuff, and I think he's going to be even scarier than ever.
Yeah. He's definitely got a special way of thinking about things.
Yeah, yeah. He's
So
just
have you lost anybody yet? Have you had any
no,
serious
no deaths
injuries
yet.
in your no?
No,
Okay.
we've not even had any interesting injuries, surprisingly. We've usually had about 3 or 4 models taken out every scenario. We've had usually both of us have achieved our objectives as well, despite desperate attempts to prevent the other person from doing that. And so yeah, we've both progressed along pretty well. But yeah, no deaths yet. But we kept last game. I think both of us drew the sort of learn from experience result, and then failed to capitalize on it on the next draw. If you know what I mean. Yeah, that'll make sense to people when they actually read the rules. But
Yeah.
there is like a chance within a chance of getting a bonus from being taken out of action, and we both got lined up for it and then didn't quite achieve it. So yeah, it was a shame. But yeah, there's been a real bloodbath. And I suppose the thing I want to say to people who are thinking of playing the woods and thinking of playing as Hearthfolk is, firstly, if you are a bit of like a historical buff, then you will really enjoy playing as them because you are getting to essentially create a spear wall or a shield wall against the supernatural horrors of the woods. The fact that you've got the Clubber as well, who can ignore fate weaving, is a really nice thing for like trying to survive the onslaught of certain enemies, like bloody leprechauns. Like Jesus Christ, if you can manage to dodge leprechauns through them, oh God, they'd be so upset.
Yeah. I mean, actually, if you took an entirely club or warband, there's no way leprechauns are achieving their secondary objectives either.
Yeah,
Because you can't
exactly.
affect every model in the warband. So.
Yeah, but then they maybe will just come at you with pech.
Yeah. Then you'll just be dead instead of very twisted around and made to look in opposite directions.
Yeah. But yeah, I think to an aspiring Hearthfolk general, if you go down the Tuatha route, you've actually still got a lot of nice stuff to play with, and they're dependable, and you find yourself thinking a lot about like formations instead of tricks. So it's much more about inevitably it's much more about kind of trying to keep your warband together and use it wisely instead of trying to do crazy wacky fun stuff like some of the other ones. Like, I mean, the Woodfolk, by comparison, half your warband's not even on the table.
Yeah. You've also you've got a really good base for developing it in the direction that you want to go, because their stat lines are pretty level across the board. It's not like they're particularly bad at anything. You've got an axe, you've got swords, you've got spears, you've got bows, so you've got pretty much all of the weapon categories covered for building on and developing and buying upgrades to those bits of equipment. You've already got some armor to be going on with, so they're well on their way to being a warband that you can develop however you want to play them.
Yeah, and I think the fact that they are coming there where everybody apart from the ski elk have got armor and decent war gear, and then the ski elk have bows, and you can get tons of them. I'm hating myself for making this comparison. They are the ultramarines of the woods.
I like it.
They've got a bit of everything.
Yeah.
And they might not be the absolute best at one thing or another, but the way they all of their elements work together. Like if you are in for the woods for a war game and not necessarily a magical, fantastical game, this is your warband, I think, because everything else is a bit silly. I mean, you might go thinking, oh yeah, go goblins, go all Stalu, but if you've got a Stalu Fate Weaver, then things are going to get silly there too. So, yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. Is like you end up thinking a lot like a conventional general with them, and then it's really satisfying when you do actually manage to outfox and take down something that is bloody horrifying emerging from the woods. Because you were, standing fast with spears and bows.
Yeah.
So
great stuff. Yeah,
that's my final sales pitch.
Absolutely, well sold, that man. Yeah, great stuff. So hopefully we'll do this again. I think we're hoping to kind of do this once a month, and maybe we'll get some better light and some microphones or something in future. Maybe we'll see how it goes.
Maybe do one in person at some point as well.
Yeah, that would be really nice. Before you move even further away.
Yeah, sorry about that. But we can maybe do one on the weekend to the woods.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, we'll see how far we've got to by that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, stay tuned, and we'll talk through another one.
And what are we doing next time, Jeff?
We'll be doing the Wild Folk next time.
Yeah.
So the other Tuatha faction, the selfish, what do you call them, libertarian Tuatha faction,
who are individualism.
Absolutely, who are the guys that you get in the box. So if you're picking up a box, the timing should be perfect to show you what to do with the people that you've got there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe we should see if we can do a bit of a double whammy and try and get the wood folk out that month as well.
Yeah. Do 2 in 1 month. So it's a bit much to ask to put them in one video, but we'll try.
No. 2 videos, 1 month.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, sounds great. See you then.
Yeah, take care.